In our first reading, Joshua summons the Hebrew people together and asks them to make a decision. Who will they serve? What will they do? And in Jesus' teaching in the Gospel today on the Eucharist, we see that similarly, the disciples find themselves in this place of making a choice. Will they accept his teaching or not? There's really no middle ground. They have to decide. We might call these kind of crystallizing moments or defining moments, actions surrounded with a certain amount of tension or drama, energy, the anchor points in any good plot. They're not the events of ordinary life, day-to-day life that can be lived without too much deep thought or deliberation. Most of the time, each day of our lives is, most of life is governed by routines that are based on prior commitments that we've made and decided a long time ago. And, thank God for that, right? Can you imagine if we had to treat every day-to-day decision as if it were a defining moment? Should I brush my teeth this morning? I need to pray and discern this. The whole world hangs in a balance. Which toothpaste? The drama, the tension. Well, we can see the absurdity in that. Whether or not we brush our teeth in the morning is a commitment that does not need to be revisited every day. It is important, but it's not defining of our humanity. It is interesting, though, in our media-saturated world that makes money from our attention, we are bombarded by a lot of these kinds of trivial dramas and false defining moments. They may not be as superficial as toothpaste, but maybe it's the Tiger King or some other thing that is equally a kind of trivial thing, and we're told we have to decide what we think, our opinion, what we're going to do about it, when it really has no impact on our lives. And I think that many of us have developed a kind of filter because of this. A filter that allows us to downplay and avoid defining moments, to avoid being pinned down and making decisions, to kind of sit on the bleachers and not ever venture onto the field. And this is a spiritual hazard for us, that we end up not giving adequate attention and deliberate response to realities that actually are consequential and critical. The temptation to kind of trifle with serious things and blow past real questions as if we were deciding whether or not to brush our teeth in the morning. Should we get married? Either way is fine. I mean, if you want to get married, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. Kids, they're great, but sometimes they aren't. We can just kind of play it by ear. Should I go visit my dying father? Well, if I get around to it. There are a few things that can cause more regret in life than the belated recognition that our own indifference and laissez-faire attitude caused us to neglect, damage, or miss out on some great good. And the greater the good involved, the greater the regret. So when it comes to the most important things, the greatest goods and relationships of life, in order to live without regret, we must at times make real choices and accept the critical nature of the moment, recognizing that not to act is itself a decision. We must be courageous and allow ourselves at times to actually be pinned down, This is not a one-time thing that happens, but it's something we have to practice. Practice stepping up, practice being counted, practice committing, practice swearing loyalty, practice saying amen, I believe. And it is true that much of the spiritual life is made up of long expanses of routine and ritual, the daily grind of trying to live a holy life. Yet this ordinary time of the Christian life is also punctuated by moments when God brings His will before us in a new way and forces us to deliberately choose and to make a wholehearted choice. And we see those examples in the readings today. Jesus asks His disciples, "Do you also want to leave?" St. Peter must respond, "To whom shall we go? You have the words of everlasting life." And Joshua asks the people, "Who will you serve?" And they must respond, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Being forced to wrestle with this kind of stark and dramatic decision and to make a choice about faith, it can feel like an external imposition if we're used to being able to choose the dramas that we watch and the decisions that we make. And it can be tempting to just punt. Why do I have to decide? Why do I have to make a decision? I have enough stress in my life. I don't need to stress out about God. He knows I'm a good person. He doesn't need to be so dramatic and showy. I choose not to choose. But what is lost by refusing to stand and be counted, to enter wholeheartedly into a defining moment, is our very identity, our connection to one another and to God Himself. You know, the Lord gives us these extraordinary moments in the journey of faith not to torment or test us, but to build us up and to strengthen us and help us understand who we are and how we are connected to Him and to one another. Each defining moment gives us an opportunity to reaffirm and strengthen our union with Him and with one another in a way that ordinary life and routines cannot provide. And so rather than avoiding these decision moments, we should actually look forward to them and seek them out as opportunities and build them into our lives. You know, look at our Catholic tradition from this perspective. We can see these defining moments built into the practice of our faith. Moments that are not meant to be ordinary, but to be defining. And this is intentional. In baptism, the one who is to be baptized, or the parents and godparents on their behalf, renounce Satan and publicly profess faith in Jesus Christ. In marriage or during an ordination, the ones to be married or ordained stand before God and the community and publicly make promises before all. And there are other, less but still defining moments that are part of our life of faith, times when we are invited to stand up and to be counted. Within the sacrament of confession, we step forward and manifest our conscience. It's a defining moment. At each Mass, I think particularly of the Creed, we stand and profess our faith. And also the prayer before the reception of Holy Communion. Lord, I am not worthy that you should enter under my roof. Even the simple word Amen becomes great after the Eucharistic prayer, identifying us with Christ. Yes, I believe, I affirm this truth. This is Jesus Christ. This is my God. These are not liturgical impositions forced on us by a church, much less a God that needs to be loved. No, they are opportunities given to us so that we can grow and be strengthened in our identity, in our communion, through a clear and unambiguous public affirmation of exactly where we stand. Ordinary daily effort to live a holy life is meant to be strengthened and nurtured by defining moments that we all experience together. Authentic faith cannot merely be assumed day by day. It must also at various times be solemnly professed. Over time, these solemn professions, they define us with greater and greater clarity. Who we are, what we stand for, what we are doing. They shape us and mold us. What we profess about ourselves changes who we are and who we become. And so as we stand in a moment to profess our faith, do not whimper or hesitate, but solemnly profess, I believe.